Geordies, welcome back to another episode. And before we get on this scout report, did anybody watch a game last night? Sunderland celebrated like they'd won the Champions League. They're not even in the Premier League yet. They've still got another 90 minutes. Or maybe more against Sheffield United. And I don't know how I feel about this because on a personal level, I love the derbies because I love and we deserve to give Sunderland a spanking. Last time we gave them a spanking. In fact, next season, if they do get up, we deserve, as Newcastle United fans, to give Sunderland 2 spankings, one away from home and one at St James's Park. So on one hand, I would like to see them back in the Premier League just so we can give them a spanking and have our derby day. But on the other hand, it's fun to see them desperately trying to get back in the Premier League, stuck in the Championship. So I don't know how I feel about it, but let me know your comments in the below. But they celebrated like they won the Champions League. They've still got a playoff final to play. They're not there yet. So it's going to be interesting what happens in the playoff final. But yeah, we could be having our derby days back next season. And speaking of Newcastle United next season, I do think we need more squad depth, like I've been saying all this week throughout these scout reports. And I think this is going to be the last midfielder of the week. And I'm wanting to do this video on this guy because this guy was getting touted as the next big thing. He was being compared to Paul Pogba when he was younger, and he's found it difficult in the early stages of his senior career. Personally, I think it's because he's been mismanaged off the pitch rather than on the pitch, and he's decided to go to clubs that don't really suit his style and don't really get the best out of him. And he's never really settled in an environment. And I feel like he's got all the elements, all the attributes. If you can get him settling in an environment, this kid could thrive. And it's somebody that captain France at youth level, and he's really had a good education as an upbringing, but it's just that transition into senior football that's let him down because he's made the wrong decisions, in my opinion. And that is Lucien Agoumé, who's currently playing in La Liga with Sevilla. He was born on the 9th of February, 2002, which makes him 23 at the moment. He stands at 6'2". He's made over 100 senior appearances. In his injury record, he's missed 107 days, 16 games through injury. Now, he joined Sevilla for 4.5 million. His market value is around 7 million. So I personally think you can get him for about 15 million, maybe 17 million, around that margin. In his earlier years, Agoumé played for Bordeaux in France. He became their youngest ever debutant at the age of 16. And even at that age, he was drawing attention from clubs like Barcelona, Inter, Lyon, who were all watching him. And then he signed for Inter Milan for a reported fee of 4.5 million at 17 years old. That is outrageous money. But instead of going into Inter's senior team, he went into their youth team, and it stalled his development. So he had loan spells at Spezia, Brest, Troyes, and then he went on loan to Sevilla, but they had an option to buy, which they did trigger after the year's loan. Now, I feel moving into Milan was too early for him. I feel like if he had stayed at Bordeaux, he would have just learned his trade far better. He would have had a better development, and he would have been more comfortable in his environment. As you can see, he's moved countries, different clubs many times, and he's never really settled at a club. And I kind of feel like if you can get him settling at a club, you've really got a player on your hands. Most of the time, he's played as a defensive midfielder, but he's also been used as a central midfielder, like a box-to-box midfielder, and an attack midfielder. Personally, it's just my personal preference. I prefer him as a defensive midfielder or a central midfielder. I don't quite see his future as an attack midfielder, and we'll get into why. So let's look at his strengths. Well, he's a versatile midfielder, as I've just mentioned. Personally, I prefer him as an anchor man, either in a double pivot, a lone 6, or a box-to-box type player is a number 8. But again, that just shows his adaptability in different formations and different systems. Positionally, and like any great defensive midfielder, he's well educated at being at the right place at the right time. He stands at 6'2" with good physicality. He's aggressive when he's pressing. And what I really like about him is how much he does press. He wants to win the ball back. That's exactly what Newcastle United do. We press high up the pitch in a man-to-man press. We want to win that ball back in the final third. And this is exactly what Agoumé will bring. And he's assertive when he's challenging. He's constantly scanning, which I like about him, on and off the ball. So when he's looking for players trying to find pockets of space or being an option for the man in possession, he's good at anticipating and breaking up play. But even when we're in possession, he's always scanning. He's alert to his surroundings. He's alert to pressure. And that's why he's so good in possession. We're going to get onto that. He's got good defensive instincts with a good diverse defensive skill set. And he's a good transitional blocker. He's so good at just stepping out from the line and breaking up the press, anticipating the play and stopping transition counter-attack. So he's an active tackler, he's an active presser who boasts strong tackling ability. He prioritises winning the ball over screening, covering or delaying, and he's got a versatile tackling technique. He can go to ground and win the ball, he can stand his ground and win the ball. He's really diverse in the way he wins the ball back. Right now his skill set's more of an orthodox box-to-box midfielder at Sevilla. He's playing in a double pivot, and that allows him to just cover a large amount of grass, which I really like about him. He's got good tactical intelligence. He understands the game. He understands when to slow the game down and when to speed it up. He reads the game well, making him a valuable asset, both offensively and defensively. He's tenacious off the ball. He's hardworking. He's physical. And I kind of feel like these are all the elements you want in a midfielder. About a year ago, he was being linked to Arsenal as a Thomas Partey replacement. That's the type of player you're going to get. Now, what he does bring in possession, he brings a lot of composure. What he's so good at is receiving. What I like about him is he doesn't do a lot of take-ons. He doesn't carry the ball very often, but he's so good at just baiting the press and moving away from the press with the ball at his feet. So when the ball arrives, he's so good at just creating separation from any pressure. And I love that quality in him. And he's got an expansive passing range, which we're going to touch on. So his primary job at Sevilla is to sit in front of the defense, break up attacks when needs be, but also launch long balls to release forwards on counter-attacks. Does that remind you of anything? Newcastle United are so good at moving the ball into space, having runners to run in behind, looking at Anthony Gordon, moving into the channels. Alexander Isak peels out wide, looks for space. So if we've got somebody that's really progressive in his play, that'll just suit our style of play. Now, when I say Agoumé is really progressive, he is actually really progressive, and it's one of his biggest assets, which I love about him. When he receives a ball, he always wants to play forwards. If he can't play forwards, that's when he recycles possession. I love that quality in a midfielder. Now, these are how he statistically compares to his Sevilla teammates this season. For expected assists, he's sixth. Key passes, 7. Passes in the penalty area, 5th. Progressive passes, 1st with 113, which is outstanding. Shot creating actions, 6th. Goal creating actions, 4th. Progressive carries, 7th. Successful take on, 6th. Tackles attempted, this way really shines, 2nd. Tackles won, 6th. Tackles in the final third won, 1st. And I think that's a quality that we love in Newcastle United. Tackles and interceptions, 2nd. Now, when we're looking for a midfielder for Newcastle United, we want somebody that's quite well-rounded. You look at our players at the moment, they are really well-rounded. Sandro Tonali is quite well-rounded. Bruno is. Joe Linton is, even though he can improve slightly in possession. They all can do a little bit of everything. So that's what we need if we want cover for these 3 players. As I always say, Lucien Agoumé is not the finished article. So there is some weaknesses to his game, and again, he lacks senior experience. I know he's played over 100 times, but a lot of those games are where he's been misprofiled and he hasn't really had that education to learn a role because he's played in different systems continuously, and I think that's impacted his maturity on the pitch. At times he can make the wrong decision when he's moving the ball, although he's really progressive with his play. He's really forward thinking. Sometimes his pass selection can let him down. He's got all the fundamentals, but needs a little bit of game time to re-find these attributes. And I feel like with Eddie Howe, we know he can coach players into being better players, learning roles, strengthening weaknesses. That's exactly what Eddie Howe does. So with a player like Lucien Agoumé, who's got all the elements, all the qualities, he's got a wonderful profile as a footballer. This is somebody that we can grow into a monster, kind of like something that we did with Joe Linton. Now, another weakness you can say, I kind of feel like he's went to Sevilla and went soul searching. He's went to find himself again. He's went to just sit in an environment where he feels comfortable, happy, and he can just focus on football, because I think he joined Inter too early. And I think he's had numerous of different loan spells at different clubs, and he's never had the chance to really settle. And I kind of feel like those loan spells have actually unsettled him rather than settled him. So would another change of environment impact him in the same way? That's something that we need to consider. And then off the ball, sometimes he can be too over aggressive. Sometimes he needs to learn when to stand up and hold his opponent or when to engage. He always wants to engage. He doesn't possess rapid acceleration or speed over longer distances. He's more of a powerful mover. And then final third actions, you won't get much creativity in the final third from him. He's more of a deep creator, launching long balls, finding passes, breaking through lines. That's what you're going to get from him. He's a progressive player. What progressive means is there's 2 meanings to it. So when you play the ball forwards, you're moving your whole team into a different third. So the way you characterize that is by moving the team 25% 90% up the pitch, and he's very good at it. So you can see he's going to receive deep because he needs that space to move his team into a different third. And we're going to talk about his progressive passes received and why he doesn't receive many. It's because of his positional play and his awareness. So he's not much of a ball carrier either. He does carry the ball, but it's over 5 yards distances and then he plays it. So you'll not see him running the length of the pitch or taking on 5 or 6 men in one action. It's more of, let us beat this man, let us bait this press, maneuver around the press, and then I play the ball. So he doesn't hold on to the ball for too long, which again can be seen as a positive. And then receiving on his weaker foot, especially with his back to goal, sometimes he can be caught out in possession. So here's how his heat map compares to our regular starters. Remember, he's playing a double pivot, so he's playing a little bit of a different system to what Newcastle United are playing, but he's happy to cover a large proportion of the pitch, mainly screening that back line with a little bit on the right-hand side. Now, I kind of feel like he could absolutely fit in that Joe Linton role if you just allow him to be disciplined on the left-hand side. He could play the Tonali role, but he will play it slightly different. And the difference is Tonali actually gets into the box. He makes deep runs, getting into the box. I don't think you're going to get that quality from Agoumé. But when it comes to receiving the ball, breaking up play, he can do exactly what Tonali does. So if he was to replace Tonali on certain games, then you would have to get deep runners from Bruno into the box. But again, football's built on profiles and partnerships. You bring the right profiles to complement partnerships on the pitch. And I feel like Agoumé has the right profile to complement Joe Linton or Bruno if he's playing that Tonali role. Or he's got the right profile to complement Bruno and Tonali if he's playing that Joe Linton role. So I kind of feel like he would be a good asset. Now let's have a look at a bit more comparisons, because this is how he compares from a statistic point of view to Bruno, Joe Linton and Sandro. And when I talk about him being very progressive, he's very progressive. Progressive in his passing, progressive in his ball carrying, but his ball carrying, you'll not see him run the length of the distance of the pitch. You'll see him running 5 or 10 yards and then he lays a ball off. But his ball recovery ability is absolutely phenomenal. He's recovering the ball more than any of our midfielders, and that's a big trait in an Eddie Howe system. Now, as you can see, his ball retention skills are excellent as well. The only thing that he's really not good at, and I've already touched on it, is his goal threat. You'll not see him getting in the penalty area often. He doesn't take many touches or get in the box himself. Now that could be down to Sevilla's style of play. So if Eddie Howe was to get a hold of him, he might give him that license to get into the box. But at the minute, he's just not doing it. So his statistics are really low in his goal efficiency and his goal threat. But here how he looks compared to midfielders across Europe. And this is his goal chance creation. Now he's creating quite, for a defensive midfielder, 2.6 shot creating actions per 90 isn't bad, but it's no surprise that 2.4 of that 2.61 is coming from a live pass. So it just goes to show his ability to break through lines with the ball at his feet. Now when it comes to aerial duels, he's averaging 51.2%, which isn't bad, and he's averaging 5.7 ball recoveries per 90, which is great in my opinion. But I kind of feel like the next two statistics are going to give you an idea of what type of player you're going to get. Somebody that does get involved in the pitch and on the play. He's averaging 61.57 touches per 90, which is very high. So he gets involved in the play, and there's no surprise the majority of his touches come in the defensive third and the middle third. And the reason behind that, if you look at the bottom of possession, progressive passes received, he doesn't receive many progressive passes. So that tells me that his starting position is quite deep because people just play a 5-yard pass into him. He's very good at just finding pockets of space, receiving the ball, and then playing from there. He's not somebody that will receive the ball in the final third. Now we'll move on to his defensive statistics. Actually getting back to his passing statistics and his dribbling. As you can see, he only averages, he's attempting 1.2 dribbles per 90, which isn't many. So when I speak about him not being a very big ball carrier, this is why. But his success rate is really high. He's getting a success rate of 72.4%. And like I mentioned, he's so good at just anticipating where the pressure is going to come from and moving away from it. And that just baits a press. It allows you to open up the game, and then you can be expansive with your passing range from there. But that's what I really, really like. And then the statistic on the passing side that really catches my eye is his progressive passes. He's averaging 5.69 per 90, which is outstanding. Now, the one worrying thing is his long passing completion rate. I mentioned his pass selection can let him down. He's very progressive, wants to play forward, but sometimes he chooses the wrong option. And that lets him down in his consistency, and that's why he's averaging 59.9% accuracy in his long passing ability. And then finally, on the defensive side of the game, as you can see, he's got a really diverse defensive skill set. He's averaging 2.9 tackles per 90, which is more than any of our midfielders. He's averaging 1.5 interceptions, and he's averaging 1.6 clearances, which is absolutely outstanding. But the figure that really catches my eye here is he gets involved in the play a lot. He wants the ball to feet. He doesn't mind receiving the ball, and he's got 0 errors this season, which is simply outstanding. But those errors are leading to a shot or leading to a goal, which is even more impressive. So he takes care of the ball. He's got good ball retention skills. Yes, he can improve his pass selection, and that can just be done by a little bit of coaching. But when it comes to looking after the ball, it's really high, and that's what I really like about him. But he's averaging 66.7% of his dribblers tackled. That's in the top 4 percentile against midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues, which again is really, really impressive. So how does he compare to Bruno, Joelinton and Sandro Tonali in possession? Well, the statistic that really catches my eye is forward passes. He's averaging more forward passes than any of our midfielders. And I kind of feel like Newcastle United are very good on the break. We want to play the ball forward. You score goals by playing forwards. You don't score goals by a negative pass or a sideways pass. You play forwards, and that's how you be dangerous. And that's one of the beauties about Newcastle United. When we win the ball back, we want to play into space. With somebody like Agoumé, who wants to play forward when he receives possession, is outstanding. So he would bring that quality that fits our style of play. But again, his pass selection in terms of completion rate has to improve, in my opinion. But he's averaging more open play passes than any of our midfielders. So it just highlights his ability to receive the ball, want to get on the ball, which again, I love in a midfielder. I hate a midfielder that goes hiding. I want a midfielder, even when they're having a bad game, to receive the ball at any moment, and he does. And the statistics prove that. So he's going to bring a lot of elements what we need and to fit our style of play because when you bring a player in, you don't want to deviate away from what you do all the time. Sometimes you can bring something extra, like if we brought in a number 10, we can mix up formations, but you still want to have the same philosophy. And I kind of feel like we need to find players that will fit our philosophy. Somebody that's aggressive out possession, that doesn't mind going into a man-to-man press, so he needs to be good in one-on-one situations, but also somebody that wants to play forward in possession, because Newcastle United are one of the most progressive passes teams in the Premier League. I think we're sitting in the top 4 in the Premier League, so that is a quality that we look for in a midfielder. When it comes to the defensive side of the game, mentioned earlier, he makes more tackles than any of our midfielders. He's averaging 3 per 90. He's got a good successful take-on rate. He's got a good ground duel success rate, more than any of our midfielders. Just more mind. Sandro Tonali's got a good success rate as well, but he's averaging more interceptions and he's blocking more shots than any of our midfielders. And when it comes to ball recoveries, only Sandro Tonali is averaging more ball recoveries than Agoumé per 90, and it's only slightly more because he's only doing a 0.1% more than Agoumé. So when it comes to elements, attributes, getting around the pitch, recovering the ball, winning your tackles, getting involved in tackles, but also wanting to play in possession, he's got those elements. He's not the finished article, though. There's still a lot of rawness to him, despite being 23. And I feel like he's just going to get better with age. He's going to be one of those players that ages with fine wine. And what I always say about young footballers, sometimes players like Agoumé, where everybody knows about him from a young age, he gets put on a pedestal that's an unrealistic pedestal. Kind of feel like Jadon Sancho's had the similar situation. Jadon Sancho at youth level was getting talked about as the next big thing. And now, when everything's going right for him, he loves it. When something goes wrong for him, it doesn't have the mentality to change the situation, if that makes sense, because they're so used to getting told how good they are. When they get told that they need to improve, they're a bit like, this is new to us. How do I improve? But what do I need to do? Because I've always constantly been told that they are the best thing since sliced bread. I kind of feel like that's similar with Agoumé. Captain France at youth level, which is a phenomenal achievement, because France's youth setup is absolutely insane. Being wanted by Barcelona, Real Madrid, all the big guns, when he was 16 years old. He got put on a pedestal and you kind of thought, this is easy. Life is easy. But once he transitioned and started going into different places, different environments, and getting told he had to do this, had to do that, and change this and change, he lost his way a bit. And I kind of feel like now he's at Sevilla, he's starting to find his way, and we're starting to see the potential that he could have. So one last statistic to show you is this graphic. And as you can see, Agoumé is a blue one here, and he is very well-rounded. Very, very well-rounded. He doesn't really lack in any department, whether that be forward passes, key passes, progressive passes, defensive actions won, ball carrying. He's averaging more carries than what Bruno Guimaraes is, for example. Forward passes again. So he's really well-rounded without being the finished article. But if we really want to build a squad that will really need to improve in a lot of areas in terms of squad depth, these are the types of players they can bring in, that can learn for a year, maybe 2 years, and then they can introduce them as a consistent basis in the starting 11 if they're good enough. But now that we've got with spine, we've got with midfield spine, we don't need to replace them instantly. We just need players that come in and be a good rotational option. But look, I've presented to you guys many different midfielders, but I want to hear from you guys. Which midfielder has caught your eye? Which statistics, even from the videos that I put on here, which one has caught your eye? Let me know in the comments below. But is Lucien Agoumé somebody that you would welcome at St. James's Park? I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below. But if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, away the lads.